It's the greatest time ever to be an entrepreneur. There is too much money chasing too few products and services. There comes a day where I say to John, hey, I want to have some shares in the business. And he says, if you want shares in a business, go start your own business. So at 21, I did. I copied everything I'd learned from John and I went and started my own business. And it took off. So 0 to $1 million in year one. Entrepreneurship is a team sport. Like, we need different people with different skills. When the opportunity is clear, you can't help but get energized. I think the human brain is probably built to procrastinate when it doesn't understand what the benefit is, what the payoff is. Can anyone be a founder who starts from scratch? I think
Daniel Priestley, welcome.
Thanks for having me on the pod.
Absolute pleasure. So I'm interested in exploring how you went from dropping out of uni to go to work for somebody else, to going from that to being an award-winning entrepreneur who's built and sold multiple 7, 8-figure businesses and written 5 books on starting and scaling businesses. Lots to cover.
There's a lot to cover. Yeah. Just that quick little anecdote. Yeah.
There's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, totally. What an amazing time to be an entrepreneur. We've got, think about it like this. We've got global marketplaces that we can access easily, cheaply, freely. Think about how much went into scaling Coca-Cola into multiple countries. And now any business, I know businesses where there's 10 people who work out of spare rooms and they have like 50 to 100 million views on YouTube and they make millions of dollars and they like have people in all over the world. So the ability to scale into markets has never been easier. There's never been more money in the world. So the governments during COVID pumped money in. That's actually why we have inflation. The definition of inflation is too much money looking for too few products and services. Right? So you could not ask for a better, like if they put that on a billboard, currently there is too much money chasing too few products and services, you'd go, oh, okay, good time to be an entrepreneur. Coming up with stuff, right? So that's there. Global talent pool, right? You can hire people all over the world. You can put together teams. Problems. There's a huge amount of problems that need solving in the world, entrepreneurial problems. So it's the greatest time ever to be an entrepreneur. If we look at my business Score App, we've got a team of 20 people with no office, right? Everyone works remotely. Fun, freedom, flexibility is the culture.
Yeah.
We've got clients in 155 countries.
Wow. Nearly every country in the world.
Yeah. I'm learning geography as a result of seeing our clients coming in from different places. So, clients in 150 countries, 20 plus employees with no offices. It's totally scalable. We grow by 5 to 7% every single month. At the moment, we won Scale Up of the Year, right? And it's all just easy. We didn't even raise very much money.
Did you not?
No, we raised just under $1 million, million US dollars. But we've spent half of it, not even half. So we still haven't even deployed it. Yeah. And this is 3 or 4 years later. We're cash flow positive. We're profitable. Rock and roll. It's a great time.
If you're enjoying this podcast, can I ask you to do one thing for me? That is to hit the subscribe button. On average, we have just 10% of people who listen to this podcast actually subscribe to it. If you subscribe to it, not only will you be the first person to be notified as soon as any brand new content goes live, it also means that we can go out and get even better guests for the show for you to enjoy. So just take 15 seconds of your time just to hit that subscribe button and I'll be eternally grateful. Thank you very much. How much do you think will AI revolutionize how we do business?
Everything. Yeah, so this is a general purpose technology. This is like electricity. This is like smartphones, social media, internet. This is a big one, right? So every now and then we have general purpose technologies and they change things. Like a smaller one was GPS. GPS, being widely available, changed many things that you could do in the economy. GPS is the fundamental technology behind Uber and a lot of the things that we have on our mobile phone rely upon being able to position where you are and all of that sort of stuff. It was a general purpose technology, but it was not a wide-reaching general purpose technology. Whereas, things like the internet or social media or electricity, these are things that touch every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
Every so often, a technology is so fundamental that it changes the actual nature of the economy. So in the agricultural age, you had people who lived and worked on the land. Most people lived in and worked in farming or farming related. And then there was the steam engine and the tractor and, railways and all of that sort of stuff. And the technology was so fundamental that it ended the agricultural age and gave birth to the industrial age.
Yeah.
What we're going through at the moment is the end of the industrial age and the beginning of, the digital age that includes AI.
Yeah. Okay. Another question for you. Do you think anyone could be an entrepreneur?
I think anyone can be part of an entrepreneurial team. Can anyone be a founder who starts from scratch? Tends to be harder for some and easier for others based on just the basic nature of what it's like to be a founder. The longer time you've spent in education and in corporate institutions, it tends to be harder to be a founder. I've hired people who've come from phenomenal big businesses and, they've done great roles. They really struggle with the idea of starting with a blank piece of paper.
Right.
But once
they're entrepreneurial.
Okay. They're entrepreneurial. They're part of an entrepreneurial team.
Yeah.
You take my CFO, David, he's an incredibly entrepreneurial person, but he's not a founder in terms of he's not like start with a blank piece of paper. He's very good at scaling through acquisitions, accessing funding, all of those sorts of things. So once the idea is clear, he's good at ramping it up. You take some of the other people on my team, they're brilliant on the 2 to 20 million jump, where you're going to, go from 12 people to 40 people. So the entrepreneurial team, entrepreneurship is a team sport. Like we need different people with different skills. There's 4 polarities that tend to come out. So there's the strategy, ideas, big picture, starting something new person. There's the team builder person who's out there meeting people, community building, team building. There's the task doer, the implementer, the one who gets their hands dirty. They forever shaking their head going, oh, another task list to do, and then they get on with it. And then there's the finance, data, technology kind of person, introvert. So when you get those 4 people together, I don't know if you remember Voltron, when like the five cats combine and form Voltron.
Yeah.
That's entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Power Rangers when they or Captain Planet.
That's right.
Yeah, where they bring the different energies together.
That's right. Yeah. And you, like going back to your own story, how you got started, Daniel. You're one of those kids selling stuff to their friends. That's your first foray into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I worked as a little kid. I worked in this way earlier than you were allowed to work. I worked in a friend's family business, which was called Plaster Magic, and it was basically turn up in a shopping center, and there was all these like plaster casts, and kids wanted to paint them.
Yeah.
And basically, my job was to get the kids painting and get them to choose a plaster cast and collect the money and do all that. So I must have been 12 or 13, and I'm working in this friend's business. And then I got a job at McDonald's, and I start learning about business. And we were 14, 15, 16 years old, running a multi-million-dollar restaurant. And then I got in and started running nightclub parties and dance parties. I started selling flowers door to door. The nightclub parties were pretty good. I was 18 and we were running like 1,000 people in a night, $10 a head. We take the door, they take the drinks. So I could make 10 grand in a night.
Wow.
Which was pretty awesome.
Especially at that age. It's awesome anyway, but
I mean, it was just good fun. Right?
Yeah.
It was like, king of the kids. Fashion parades and all that sort of stuff. So at 18, I was doing those sorts of things.
So how come you then decided to go to uni if you kind of had that taste?
Well, I was doing the nightclub parties at uni.
Okay.
But what was crushing was I went back to my university classes, and I'm doing a degree in, it was called enterprise management, and it was sold as, if you want to be an entrepreneur or small business, part of the small business landscape, you could do an enterprise management degree. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to meet actual entrepreneurs and all this sort of stuff. And I go back and I talk to the non-entrepreneur people teaching us. And they're all like, oh, what's it like running a nightclub party? And how did you do it? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking, wait a second, why am I teaching I'm meant to be.
Yeah, I'm not learning.
Yeah. So I told Dad that I wanted to drop out. He hated the idea, was not a big fan, but he kind of ultimately recognized that I was going to do it anyway. He introduced me to this guy called John, who he kind of knew through a friend of his friend. And John was basically in startup mode. He was going to be starting a business. So the thing with John was like, no business name, no business bank account. I turn up at his house, beautiful big house. He's been an entrepreneur before, and he's got 3 kids, and he's got an amazing home office. And I'm like, wow, this would be cool, right? To see what a real entrepreneur does to start a business. So what was meant to be a half-hour chat turned into a 3-hour chat. He put me on the team as person number 3. And we literally had to come up with a name for the business. We had to come up with our first campaign, our launch campaigns.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. So it was
great training.
Basically an entrepreneur apprenticeship.
And was that the one that ultimately led you to starting your first business?
Yeah, so from 19 to 21, I worked for John, and it's pretty explosive. We go from 0 to 60 people. We go from a beachfront house to an inner city Melbourne office. We launch in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. I launch regional cities for John, so I'm doing Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong, Hobart, Cairns. So I'm flying around these regional cities, launching the business in those cities. And this all just this is intense 2 years, like nonstop.
In your early 20s?
Yeah, 19 to 21.
19 to 21, wow, okay.
And he did not at all treat me like a 19-year-old. He was like, figure out how to run ads in a newspaper, generate leads, make sales, like go figure it out, mate. What am I paying you for? Why do I have to, John was great at just trusting me to go off and do this thing. I spun out this side part of his business that did $750K in its first year and made $250K of profit. So it was a pretty wild 2 years. It was an amazing 2 years. So then there comes a day where I say to John, hey, I want to have some shares in the business. And he says, if you want shares in a business, go start your own business. So at 21, I did. I took him literally, which I don't think he meant literally.
I wouldn't have thought he would.
No, I think he was basically trying to slap me down.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went, he's given me his blessing to go start a business.
So you took that template.
I copied everything I'd learned from John, and I went and started my own business, and it took off. So 0 to $1 million in year 1, over $1 million in year 1, 10.7 million in year 3 was the sales that we hit. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, rock and roll. It's very fast growth, 3 years. Running it all out of a big house in Brisbane, and everyone was under 30, and work hard, play hard, party hard. It was great times.
This episode is brought to you by porkbun.com, named the #1 domain registrar by USA Today for 2023 and 2024. Porkbun helps you establish your trusted online presence with a .pro domain. The .pro domain extension is perfect for any online professional, freelancers to small business owners and beyond. Show off your skills and provide instant credibility to your online portfolio. Every domain from Porkbun comes with free features like Whois Privacy, SSL certificates, web and email hosting trials, and more. After all, why pay for things that should be free? With a simple user interface, you can manage everything about your domain from one place. Plus, it all comes backed by personalized 5-star support 365 days a year. So get ready to level up your professional online presence and grab a .pro domain for only $1 for the first year at Porkbun for a limited time. Just go to porkbun.com/screwitjustdoit24. The link is in the show notes section of this episode. Just click the link that says porkbun.com/screwitjustdoit24. Were you equipped to deal with the pressure that came with that?
Well, I most of it, yes, and then I did a big screw up. So there was a lot of pressure, and we muddled our way through and made it work. I don't know that anyone's really well equipped for super fast growth. You're surfing a wave, and you're just gonna have to figure stuff out. But yes, for most of it, we handled it pretty well, and then came. When I was 24 years old, then came an offer to buy, or heads of terms to buy the business for $14 million. And at that point, I should have recognized, if I had any regrets about that time, I should have recognized that was a massive critical moment, that it was really important to get that right. But instead, I muddled through and I screwed it up.
How did you screw it up, Daniel?
Oh, you really want to take me back to this like you know, punch in the guts. All right, so fine, let's go there.
How old are you?
I was 24.
Wow. Okay.
So we had agreed heads of terms in Brisbane, and this must have been around November. And then it had to go to the board, and the board had to discuss. This was a company we'd made. We were their sales and marketing engine, and they were going to float on the stock market. And basically, they had said, we're going to buy you and roll you in for the float. And basically, we'd gone to heads of terms and got all of that. And then right before Christmas, the guy says, oh, fly over to Perth, which is about a 6-hour flight. And I think it was 2 days before Christmas or something like that. And he says, fly over to Perth. We want to have a chat with you as a board, and we want to kind of talk about the plans for next year and, you know, get some of that locked down. And I said, oh, can we do this in January? Like, I'm cooked. The team is cooked. And I've told my girlfriend that we're like done for the year. And, you know, I've basically winding down, getting ready for Christmas. I haven't even done my Christmas shopping. Like, you know, I just want to, like, can we do this January? No, we're having a board meeting. Come on over. Okay. So I fly over begrudgingly with my partner, Glenn, and he basically starts to talk to me on the plane about he's got concerns about whether this business can continue doing what we've been doing and whether they're looking after people well enough. I agree with him. I'm like, yeah, they're not, right? They're moving too fast. We need to slow down and help people and make sure that everything actually sticks. And we talk about this idea that we need to slow down to speed up, and, you know, that they just seem to be so focused on growth but not looking after the people who are showing up. So this kind of starts to emerge. We have this thing. We arrived there for the board meeting, and they leave us sitting in the foyer for 8 hours. 8 hours, right? So we arrive at 9 o'clock, and they open the door at 5 o'clock. So we knock on there, and they say, oh, just stay there. We're just in the middle of something. So we're sitting in the board meeting. So by the time we've had 8 hours of being really annoyed, and like just getting more and more annoyed, and we've talked ourselves into how much we hate them by this point, and we've talked ourselves into the fact that So then we get in the board meeting, and basically we just unleash with all the things they're doing wrong, and we give them a long list of our demands, and we tell them how unprofessional they are and all this sort of stuff. So this didn't go well.
You surprised me.
So they ended up taking a very different path, and basically I talked my way out of $14 million in that moment, which was loads of fun. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting, because that mutual friend of ours was chatting to Dominic McGregor this morning, who was business partner with Steven Bartlett. You've just, not relatively recently, I guess, 6 months ago now, maybe?
Only 3 months.
3 months, okay, on Diaryofaceo. And Dom just brought this book out about sobriety, and he was saying, they were like 22, 23 when it just snowballed for them, multi-million-pound growth. And he said his way of dealing with it was just drinking until, everybody, he hit the bottom. The staff were embarrassed to be out with him. Stephen's way of dealing with it was to lock himself away on the other side of Manchester and not talk about it. And he said, came to a head, and, Stephen came around to see him, ready to let him have it, like literally, as you were saying, literally kind of literally let him have it, hairdryer treatment, Alec Ferguson. And he said, Dom said at that point, I asked for help, but that was the first time that I had ever asked for help. And then we realised we actually needed a management team. We couldn't do
Fast growth is so, it's full on. It's full on. We were working non-stop, like morning till night, weekends, maybe a couple of days off a month.
Yeah.
And during those couple of days off a month, it's just laundry and, just catching up on like the basics of living.
Yeah.
Every meal was eaten in a restaurant that whole time. It was breakfast in a restaurant, lunch in a restaurant, dinner in a restaurant, and roll out of bed in the morning and work until 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then go to bed and roll out of bed the next day. Like, it was every waking hour was just work. Now, mind you, people hear that. And a lot of people don't have a lot of reference points to work outside of whatever work they've done.
Yeah.
Work when you're building a company is insanely fun work. You're having nonstop meetings with people, and you're signing deals and making money.
Yeah.
And you're traveling, and you're like setting things up at shows, and you're packing down at shows, and you're hiring random people and onboarding them onto the team. And like if it's super fast growth, you might hire someone in one city and just say, jump on a flight with me and we're going to talk through everything you need to know on the flight, and then you're going to fly back, right? Because that's the only time I got available.
Yeah.
Like that stuff was going on. You know? So like, I mean, it's rock and roll, but it's
it's
nonstop work, but it's full on. Yeah.
And at what point then did you kind of fast forward then to where you are now today? We've just been talking about the scorecard, for example.
And mind you, that was all 20 years ago.
Yeah. So exactly.
So we're doing a fast forward. Like I'm 43 now. That was 20. I was 24 when that happened.
Okay. So at what point did you even formulate a vision for what you're doing today? That's the kind of jump that I want to kind of make.
So around 2009, I really got passionate about the idea of entrepreneurs solving the world's most meaningful problems. I got really passionate about the idea that entrepreneurship was a vehicle for social change and not just making money, but doing interesting things in the world. And I got interested in entrepreneurship itself as a vehicle. So I ended up launching Dent Accelerators in 2010. We launched the Key Person of Influence program. We aligned to all these different charities. And basically we started running an accelerator for people who want to stand out, scale up, make a positive impact in the world. And that's what we've kind of formalized. Before it was a thing, we launched a personal brand accelerator when no one knew what a personal brand was.
That's when I first heard about you. It must be like 2010, right around that time. And I didn't know what a personal brand was at that time,
Yeah, so the book Key Person of Influence came out, and this was like explaining a personal brand when there's very little reference points for what that actually would be and what it would look like. So since then, we've had 5,500 companies come through our accelerator. We've worked with phenomenal people who have gone on to build massive companies and sell and exit and make changes and raise money for charities. We've worked with probably 100 CEOs of charities. So like all sorts of stuff like that.
Interesting. When you look back on that time now, when you were interested in the concept of entrepreneurship itself, and you came out with that book, Key Person of Influence, and you see people launching businesses based on personal branding and the industries that come out of the back of them. What do you think about now? How do you reflect back on that period and when you wrote that book?
Well, the funny thing is I feel like I didn't do enough with it, to be honest.
Right.
I was the first one to write a book.
Yeah, I read it.
Key Person of Influence.
Yeah.
And yet the strange thing is I didn't really like get super consistent with YouTube until recently, and I didn't go all in on like all the stuff. I did pretty well. I built a pretty great business and global business, but I look at what others did with that opportunity, like Gary Vaynerchuk and more recently Alex Hormozi and all that. And I sit there and slap myself and go, I could have easily been the Alex Hormozi of the day.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't lifting enough weights, but
wearing enough tight tees.
I needed a nose band or something like that. But so there's a bit of disappointment that I didn't do more with that. But also, there's a lot of pride in the fact that we have worked with 5,500 companies so far.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
And like our clients have done really, really well off this. We steered them in the right direction through the pandemic and through the through ups and downs. So in many cases, like we regularly get people say, "I have my business because I went through the accelerator." I have this lifestyle, or I got this exit because of what we got from you. So we get that all the time.
What would you, it's a random question, what would you do differently then if you were publishing that book next week? What would you have set up to maximize the impact of that this time around, Daniel?
I'd probably, like some of the big breakthrough moments recently, getting onto a big podcast like Diary of a CEO, millions of people see that, and then, really getting in there and being consistent on places like YouTube and LinkedIn, and here's the thing I would have done differently. I probably would have hired 3 or 4 more extra people on the team whose only job was just ramping up personal brand.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of ridiculous for anyone who's not done that, but when you start to see what personal brand really can do for you, the opportunities that it opens, the speed that you can launch things, the speed that you can hire, having 3 or 4 people whose job is just ramp up the personal brand of the founder, not a stupid idea.
Yeah, and the obvious examples being a Steven Bartlett, whose podcast you've just been on, and having that team in the background.
And he's got like 35 people.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. I was just with his team at the podcast show. I was interviewing them live at the podcast show, and it was like, them saying, we'll literally get a phone call going, can you jump on the next flight to New York? We're doing 4 interviews tomorrow, and can you just sit in and take notes? And I was just like, really? It's like, yeah. And then you just go away and clip it all up.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk starting a business from scratch, 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
How do we know if a business is a good idea?
So we need to do fast and cheap experiments in the marketplace. So there's 2 sides to a good business idea. There's what happens behind the curtain, and there's what happens in the market. So behind the curtain, you need to do a bit of soul searching. You need to essentially say, am I really going to stick with this? If this is going to be a really bumpy road, if this is going to take me to my edges, do I really care that much? Is it worth doing? Am I trying to just chase the money here, or do I want to do something beyond just making money? So you need to do that kind of internal bit of soul searching. I'm a big believer that you should always have 5 to 10 ideas that you explore and then pick the best one. Not just get hung up on an idea, but actually, do a bit of exploring. You might also really want to go and talk to some mentors and say, which one do you think is the best idea and why? Not necessarily that you'll take the advice, but it's just the questions that they will ask you. It kind of points you in that direction. Once you've narrowed it down to what you want to do and what you think is a good idea, now we need to see if the market agrees with you. The best experiment I've ever come across is called a waiting list. So a waiting list is just you launch a landing page and you say, we are launching a new approach to blank. So we're launching a new approach to getting fit. We're launching a new approach to healthy eating. We're launching a new approach to scaling a business. We're launching a new approach to protecting your business from cybersecurity threats, right? Whatever it is. So we're launching a new approach to X, Y, and Z. It's for this type of person. Join the waiting list to find out more information as soon as it's available. So click a button, join the waiting list, and you might also say these are some of the features or these are some of the things that we want to do. This is the team behind it is also a good thing. Yeah. So all of that's on a landing page. And then join the waiting list. Now, when they click join the waiting list, they do name, email, location, but then you ask 3 or 4 questions, and you want to ask a couple of questions about what problem are you trying to solve? What desired outcome are you excited to achieve? What have been the biggest obstacles that have stopped you from getting that outcome before? What have you tried that hasn't worked? And how much are you willing to pay? Right? What's a decent price?
Yeah.
So those kind of questions, you want to ask those and collect that data so that you can fine tune the idea. Now, if I pump that out, let's say I send 150 direct messages, if I can get 3 to 7% of people onto a list, I'm going to say, okay, that's got legs.
Right? Okay, 3 to 7%.
Yeah, because it's only early days.
Yeah.
Right. Now, mind you, if it's a really warm list, if I've got 150 people and they all know me, like me, trust me, maybe it's going to be 15 to 20 people on the list that makes me feel like that's good. Yeah. But if I'm just reaching out pretty cold, when I launch an idea, by the way, so many people, they're such lightweights when it comes to launching an idea. I'm just going to park this and go off on a rant. People say, oh, I tried to launch a business and it didn't work. And I go, how many people did you message? Oh, I messaged 30 people and only 2 responded. I'm like, they're great numbers. Keep going. Well, but I've run out of people. No, you haven't. The whole internet is codified, right? When I'm launching an idea, I'm messaging 3,000 people to see what happens from 3,000. I typically do 20 batches of 150. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, okay, I'm going to send this to butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, see whether butchers, bakers, or candlestick makers are more responsive. Yeah. I'm going to send this to people in London, New York, Singapore, see if I can get, a geographical.
And keep it simple, the same message to...
Same message, or I might test some slightly different messages. Yeah. So I'm essentially the variables I can work with is, who is the ideal customer persona? Where are they? So who are they? Where are they? And what message resonates the best with them? So I'm going to do different batches of messaging different types of people, messaging different locations of people, and messaging people with a different message. and I'm just going to send thousands of those. People go, where did you get the list from?
Yeah.
I message people based on groups that they're in LinkedIn, hashtags that they might follow, people they might follow on Twitter or Instagram. I'm just going to reach out cold. Simple message might be this. Hi, Alex. I noticed that you follow, Gary Vaynerchuk, and I do too. I really love his content. Over the last 5 years, we've been running a marketing campaign that worked really well, generated 90,000 leads and $20 million in sales. The way we did that was through a scorecard. If you'd like to know more about that particular campaign, I'm doing a breakdown of that campaign step by step on a Zoom call. It's completely free. I just want to share this information and see how people react.
I love it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple when you say it, and I've read it know, as well before. Yeah.
So simple like that. And then let me know if you're interested and I'll send you the link. So I don't even send them the link, right? Let me know if you're interested. I'll send you the link. They come back. Yeah, I'm interested. Cool. Here's the link.
Okay.
Right.
So you don't send them the link. You wait till they come back to you and then send them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or here's what we've done. So I always reference the past, not the future. So I always say, over the last 2 years, we've done this, right? Here's who we did it for. Here's what results we got. If you're interested in that, I'm going to be launching something. Sometimes I'll do a waiting list for an event. So I say, I'm going to do, if enough people are interested, this is a great hook. If enough people are interested, I'm going to run a free Zoom call unpacking how I did this.
Yeah.
If you're interested, let me know. Yeah, I'm interested. Thanks so much. Quite a few people have been interested. Would you mind joining this waiting list? And I'll let you know as soon as the Zoom call is scheduled.
That's cool. Okay. So I was trying to, like doing the scorecard, and I heard you on, DOAC talking about the wait list, and I'm like in my mind about to launch something else with another friend who James Burt, another podcaster, and having a conversation with him, and he's like, well, which way around does it go? Do you do the wait list? Do you do the scorecard? And I was just like, I've got the man in himself. I'm just going to ask him the questions and say, what order you do it in? And yeah.
Look, for me, I'm a big believer in kick the door off the hinges. Right, so kick the door off the hinges means let's not get precious.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Let's just try.
Yeah,
let's flick a scorecard to people, see if they answer that. Flick a wait list to people, see if they answer that.
Yeah,
keep track. Do more people want the scorecard, or do more people want the wait list?
Yeah.
Once they're on the wait list, send them the scorecard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
once they've taken the scorecard, send them the wait list.
Yeah. When did you come up with the idea for scorecard then? How long ago was that?
Well, I did the book Key Person of Influence.
Yeah.
I'd previously worked with a professional speaker who had an online assessment, and everyone took the assessment.
Okay.
Hundreds of thousands. Behind the scenes, this was our big marketing tool, right?
Yeah.
So everyone loves a personality test or something like that.
Yeah.
So when I launched Key Person of Influence, I worked with my co-founder now, Steven Bartlett, and we created the Key Person of Influence scorecard. And 90,000 people filled it in, and we made 20 million off the back of it. $20 million. 90,000, yeah. Those leads went to the sales team. We made $20 million worth of sales. And then everyone kept saying, well, I want to do one of these assessments. I ended up doing 3 assessments. I did the Key Person of Influence, the oversubscribed, and the 24 assets one. And they were just marketing machines. Like a typical landing page might get 2 to 4% conversion. Scorecard landing page get 20 to 40% conversion. And you collect all the data. People love these things. So we started setting them up for some friends and clients. And then it became obvious that this should be a platform, make it easy for everyone else to set one up. And then Score App was born.
Any industries, you must have like every industry known to man or beast, any industries that it works particularly well or doesn't work as well?
Well, the magic of Score App is that we've taken something that used to work really, or that everyone knows works. This works really well with teenage girls, right? In terms of which Taylor Swift concert should you go? Which Disney princess are you?
Yeah.
What type of boyfriend should you get? Right? Right? I think Reddit smashed it with quizzes and all this sort of stuff. What we did is we took something that was working with teenagers and we made it for B2B services. Now, what blows everyone's mind is that this works phenomenally with any B2B service. So coaches, consultants, people who sell day rates, speakers, educators, that's the primary wheelhouse. We see this, cybersecurity experts, fitness trainers, health and wellness people, relationships experts, counselors, therapists, life coaches, big influencers, authors. Those are the people who the scorecard just absolutely crushes it with.
Yeah, funny, a friend of mine yesterday, I was doing an interview yesterday down in Port, and he said, "Oh, are you interviewing tomorrow when you go to London?" And I told him, and he was like, "Oh, I've just done Daniel's scorecard." He's a life coach.
Nice.
Yeah.
What has he set one up?
Yes, he set one up.
Yeah, I mean, he will find that he signs up 10 times more life coaching clients if you get people to do a wheel of life assessment followed by a conversation about life coaching. Like, the conversion will go through the roof. And also, if you get them to do a wheel of life assessment and based on that assessment that they're not going to be a good client, then you don't have to have a long conversation. You have a quick conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like, it's like if you went to the doctor and you said, "Oh, I've been getting this weird pain in my elbow." And they went, "Oh, let's put it in a cast for 6 weeks." And you go, it's a little bit of a rush.
Yeah.
Whereas if they said, "Let's do an X-ray or an MRI, let's do an assessment, and then let's look at the results of the assessment together, and then I'll tell you what we need to do." Now, if you do an X-ray and it says, "Yeah, you've got a broken bone in there, we need to put it in a cast." Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that's well explained.
Yeah, so an assessment is the key.
So going back to starting a business from scratch, if you were doing it again, solo founder or co-founder?
I like co-founding businesses. I think business is a team sport. Essentially, I like someone whose job is to sell the thing and someone whose job is to scale the thing. Those two work well together.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I'm now quite experienced with business, and I've got a reputation. If I wanted to, I could probably just hire someone to scale the business, and I could afford to do it. Most people, if you're starting your first business, you're not going to be able to afford to hire someone who can scale the business, or you're not going to be able to attract someone who could scale the business.
Yeah.
So you have to co-found.
Yeah.
You got to find a co-founder.
And after that, then, to point you just your first hire, who would you, obviously relative depending on the business, but what kind of help would you look to get in?
So almost always I've got a 4-person team very rapidly. So my first person, so the four people I'll have on a team is the key person of influence, who's the driving force, the front-facing person who's running around driving the thing. Then you've got a salesperson, either an appointment setter who puts people in front of the entrepreneur, or the entrepreneur puts people in front of the salesperson.
Yeah.
Then you've got an executive assistant who just does all Swiss Army knife stuff, right? 25 different functions, right? They can print stuff, they can file stuff, they can data entry stuff, they can make appointments, right? So an executive assistant in there.
Yeah.
And then a head of operations or head of scaling, basically product, someone whose job is to make sure customers are happy.
Yeah.
So key person of influence, head of sales, head of operations, executive assistant. Those are my first 4. And I almost always start with those 4.
Okay. And do you start with an exit in mind, or do you just start with a passion to want to make this work?
The correct way to start is to pick, do I want a lifestyle business or a performance business? If you want a lifestyle business, you're going to index towards passion, and you're going to stay in this business a lot longer. And you're making decisions based upon what would maximize fun, freedom, flexibility for everyone involved. What would keep this whole thing a really enjoyable business to be part of, and making great money and all that sort of stuff. But if you know that you want a performance business, ideally you need to maximize for what would make this valuable to an acquirer. I'm going to sell this business, or part of the business. I'm going to, partner with private equity or whatever it is, but I'm going to ultimately build towards that type of thing. I don't care which one you choose. I think it's smarter to choose a lifestyle business. for most people.
Yeah.
But if you've got it in you to do a performance business, that can be life-changing as well. You sell a business for, 8 figures and life is very different.
Yeah, I bet. And going back to key person of influence, how important is it, especially in this day and age, I guess, to have a personal brand running alongside your business brand to amplify your business?
At the moment, it's nearly impossible to get a business off the ground without it. You think about any business, the reason people are going to join the team is because they really respect the founder. The reason people are going to sign a deal with that company when it's in its infancy, they respect the founder. The reason you're going to get cut through with your ads is because the founder's passionate and pitching it really well. Like all of the joining steps that make the whole thing come together, it's really down to the founder being able to represent the business really well. And then let's say you did find something where you could be a faceless drone behind the scenes. Ultimately, you're just going to get beaten the minute someone steps out and competes with you with the face and who's passionate.
Yeah.
When Elon Musk comes along, that's going to crush your General Motors.
Yeah, that's a good example. If you were starting out, how old are your kids?
6, 7, and 10.
Okay, I thought they were younger. Yeah, so mine 15 and 17, and it's interesting age doing like work experience, first jobs, etc. If you were starting out and you were a teenager and you've got that decision, further education, start a business, whatever it might be, get a job. What kind of action steps would you take when it comes to building a personal brand?
For starters, my number one action step would be to work closely with someone who has a personal brand. If you can be a direct report to any entrepreneur who's scaling, who's got credibility, because you can leverage that. You can leverage that to the teeth. A big example would be if you had worked directly with Gary Vaynerchuk, that's going to open a ton of doors.
Yeah.
What teenagers should do is they should do a number of things. Aim to be a direct report for an entrepreneur. That's like number one. Directly working with an entrepreneur who's growing and scaling a business is absolutely key. If you can't do that, get a hospitality job while you can, while it's possible, because a hospitality job is a really great microcosm where you've got demand and supply visible, physically visible.
Yeah.
You can see people sitting down, or you can see people on one side of the bar ordering drinks and on the other side of the bar pouring drinks. Hospitality jobs are hard. They're long hours. There's all sorts of nonsense. There's all sorts of problems that need solving. And the people who I've hired over the years who have run cafes, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, they're always hardworking. They're practical people. They understand how to solve nonsense. They understand that sometimes you need to pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal to be up at 2:00 in the morning. Let's not lose our minds because someone had a late night, right? Like hospitality, you're often doing a 2:00 finish and then you're back in at 8:00 in the morning. Happens all the time.
It's tough, but it's true.
Right.
Yeah,
so you don't end up being a wet wipe, like most people these days. So hospitality job, then try and work in a small tech agency where you're working with a small tech team that's developing technology. So you get a tech agency, a hospitality job, avoid nonsense degrees, avoid nonsense training, right? People say, oh, it's good to go to university so you meet people. You'll meet people in hospitality. You'll meet people. You'll meet people in this. Unless you've got a burning passion for veterinary science, right? Then I would say first choice, direct report to an entrepreneur, hospitality, agency, and then think about starting a business.
I love it. That's fantastic. Fantastic advice. Really good. You explain things so simply, as you do in your books, I have to say. When did you decide that you wanted to articulate your thoughts in the medium of a book, for example, as opposed to...
Yeah. All through my 20s, I'm running this business called Triumphant Events. We basically scale businesses by running repeatable events. That's the whole business model. The business model is we find a business that wants to scale and we run these events for them, and we get audiences, and we, really powerful for franchises, finance, funding businesses, tech companies, enterprise tech. So we're doing this, and what we discover is that it's so easy to pull a crowd if you get this key person of influence on the stage, right? So if you can find an industry voice or an industry person that doesn't have to be a famous person, but if they've got an industry voice, that person gets on the stage. Now, I spent tens of thousands a month paying these people to come and stand on stages so we could pull crowds in and scale these businesses. So we discovered that it was better to have a great person on the stage than to spend more money on ads, that you could spend much less on ads if you had a key person of influence, right? So that was one of the key insights in my 20s.
Okay.
Now, when I go looking for these people, which I always had to go looking for these people, first place I'd look is the books. Who's written a book on it?
Yeah.
So I discover that key people of influence, they've all written a book.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you see this, you see it everywhere. You realize all the podcast guests have written books, and all the people on stages have written books, and all the people, it's like, oh, these books things, there must be something to this. So it almost is like a key that unlocks the door to being on bigger platforms. So I realized this, and I basically I wrote a blog, How to Be a Key Person of Influence, and I explained I choose who gets 10 grand to speak. Right. So I'm the guy who writes the check for 10 grand for a 90-minute talk, or an hour. So here's what I look for, and I write this blog on this website, and it says, they've got a great pitch, they've published a book, they've got great products and services they represent, they've got a good profile when I Google them, and they've raised, and they're easy to partner with. So I put all of that in a blog. And then I realized, well, I better write a book. So I was flying a lot, and I just made a deal with myself. The first 4 hours of every flight was writing a book.
Oh, that's how you did it.
Yeah, and that's how I did 6 books.
You created the time, basically.
Yeah.
6, well, okay. Did you see, when you went on Diary of a CEO, did you see like key person of influence sales suddenly have a little spike?
Oh yeah, not a little spike. No, it's like thousands and thousands of books coming in, like sales every day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wild. Yeah, absolutely wild. And the books, look, the book sales aren't really the thing. I give away books.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
Books are a way of scaling your sales team. So if I hire a salesperson on $50,000 a year, or if I give away 10,000 books at £5 per book, the book has longevity. The book actually goes out, and so if I know that I can have a smaller sales team, but like let's say 2 paths. Path 1 is have 4 people on a sales team. Path 2 is and give away 100 grand of books per year. Path 2 is have 6 people on a sales team and invest that 100 grand into the extra 2 salespeople.
Yeah.
The 4-person team with the 100,000 worth of books given away massively outperforms the 6 people who don't have the books.
I love that. That's a great quote. Quick fire rounds. What did you need? What was the one thing you needed to enable you to screw it, just do it, and take you from where you were to where you currently are right now?
Initially, I needed a mentor. I needed to work for an entrepreneur, and I needed to be the shadow of an entrepreneur. Then I needed a credit card. I started all my businesses on a credit card. A little bit of capital, a little bit of funding, high risk, but that's, I just needed that little bit there. I needed sales skills. I needed to do relentless amounts of selling to build my sales confidence and sales skills. I couldn't have done it without sales skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you currently where you want to be?
Beyond, I live in my dream home. I've got 3 healthy kids. I've got a lovely, gorgeous wife. I've got a fluffy cat that is great for no stress. I travel the world. I'm playing with casino chips now. Like I'm playing with house money. So like I'm having a good time. Does that mean that I have no ambition? No, I've got more ambition than ever. But I'm so grateful. Like had I been born in any other time, 80 years ago, was it D-Day? Those 15-year-olds on the boats, they just born at a particular time where that was what they had to do. So I'm just grateful for everything. I'm born at a particular time where I can be an entrepreneur. It's what I'm good at. If I was born At another time, I'd have to be in a farm.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Probably be some dog's body for a lord, right?
In the medieval age.
Yeah.
What do you think, looking back, was the big domino that knocked over all the other dominoes, that if you hadn't have taken that one action, nothing else that's happened?
You know, it's weird that everyone always asks me about my relationship with John. So 19 years old, John probably barely remembers the time because I've had young guys work for me who have come up to me later and gone, you know, it was incredible working with you, and I've gone and I've had a dozen people go off and start 7-figure businesses. And to be honest, I've had people who've worked for me and I've not really remembered a lot about it because I'm building a team.
Yeah.
John probably doesn't think a lot about what happened, you know, his experience with having me on the team, but I think a lot about the fact that I had a mentor at that time.
Yeah.
You know, so if we go back to first domino, I think having that experience of going from 0 to 6 million, I think we did in our first 2 years, or in year 2 we did 6 million. So I think it was like 0 to a few million, and then, you know, maybe it was might have been 0 to 2 million, 2 million to 6 million. It was like pretty fast growth. So doing that with John and being his shadow for 2 years, that probably was like a big first mover. But that was built on doing my first. He only hired me because he saw me do the nightclub parties.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if you can do those nightclub parties, you can come and join the team. You know, that was the thing. So that was a first domino.
Okay.
You know, and I did the nightclub parties. I got my confidence up because I worked at McDonald's. You know, working at McDonald's on $3.25 an hour, you know, it gave me the confidence as a 15-year-old to be running a multi-million-dollar restaurant. You know, we used to do $5,000 every half hour in the lunch rush.
No way.
Yeah, and I was on production, right?
That's
so
bonkers.
I'm 15 years old. I was a crew trainer calling. So I built my confidence at McDonald's. You know, I then worked behind a bar, a cool bar. That gave me a bit of confidence. Then I did my nightclub parties. Yeah. You know, and then I got a job with John, and then I started my own company.
So for those who are procrastinating in, you know, shaping their narrative of getting from where they currently are to where they want to get to, what would your advice be?
Procrastinating is a really hard thing. I think when the opportunity is clear, you can't help but get energized. I think the human brain is probably built to procrastinate when it doesn't understand what the benefit is, what the payoff is. So, you know, like if I said to someone who's procrastinating, you know, there's a suitcase full of 10,000 pounds just there. If you want, you can open it, take it, right? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Okay, it's 100,000 pounds, but you got to, you know, you got to run 20 miles. If you walk 20 miles, there's 100,000 in a suitcase. It's theirs. It's yours. You take it. You know, they're gonna do that. So it's when there are really, really clear payoffs. You know, the reason that I was able to scale a business is I was seeing how quickly it was working. I spent $7,000 on an ad and I made $35,000 the following week. So it was like boom, 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 boom. So you need to connect the dots in your head, right? So maybe the next step is getting a hospitality job or working for an entrepreneur, and you just need to know that step is a great step towards millions of dollars, millions of pounds, right? So like connect the dots between effort and reward, and say there's going to be a staged event here. I'm going to do this, then this, and this, and this, and it's going to be exponential. The problem with entrepreneurship is it's a power law. You get very limited upside, and then boom, you know, it hits it gets liftoff. Yeah. So you got to recognize that even though like the rewards are disproportionately stacked at the last 10%, they're all the rewards are at the finishing line.
So I should never give up.
Yeah. So just know that you are making progress. You're getting close to that. When it comes to working in a job, it's a bell curve. It's not a power law. It's a bell curve, which means if you're just average, you get, you know, everything, the rewards happen, you know. Yeah. So the entrepreneurial thing, maybe you've been conditioned to the bell curve. I should work and get a result, right? Unfortunately, that's not how entrepreneurship tends to work. No. So, you know, maybe go work for an entrepreneur, or keep procrastinating. You know, I want less competition. I don't want someone to wake up, get the fire in their belly, and come and take my lunch. I'm just kidding.
I like it. If people want to learn more about everything you do, from the scorecard to books like Key Person of Influence, easiest place to go to?
So Amazon's got all the books. Daniel Priestley. LinkedIn. I'm actually really on LinkedIn quite a lot now. So add me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I found that a really positive platform. So LinkedIn would be great. Amazon books would be great. I run every month. I do like an introduction to entrepreneurship Zoom call. People jump on that. Check out Score App. Right part of Score App is a courses section where I've actually uploaded a ton of courses about leads, appointments, presentations, and sales, and how we do our marketing.
Currently going through that myself, so just saying that, everybody.
There's a ton of, and that's part of a free account. So you can get a free account and take on the courses at Score App.
Yeah.
So those would be a few cool ways.
Brilliant. And definitely Score Up. I think it's absolutely bloody fantastic. And I think I've referenced at least 3 people in my immediate circle who are doing the same thing. So it's got to be something in there, everybody.
Nice.
Daniel Priestley, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please become part of the growing Scrooge's Doing community by clicking the follow or subscribe button. I've set a goal to get 50% of those who listen or watch the show to follow or subscribe. The starting point is a little over 10% of you, so we've got some work to do. As always, I hope that each episode of this podcast is helping you get from where you currently are to where you want to be.